What's up, everybody? I'm Jake the Lawn Kid. Welcome back to yet another video. So nice to have you guys here. Hope all of you are having a fantastic morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you're at. Guys, if you're watching this in the morning, you know the drill. Make sure you have a nice cup of black to kick it off. So what we're going to talk about in today's video, guys, is actually going to be more on spring seeding. So for those of you who've been watching the channel, you guys know that back in the fall of last year, I sodded my front and side yard with Scott's Vista Kentucky Bluegrass. Now, some of the benefits we've talked about with that grass and the reasons I wanted to go with it was the fact that it was a slower grower, which means less mowing and more time to focus on other aspects of the lawn that are important, such as fertilization and weed control, which brings me to the second point, fertilization. It doesn't need as much of it to stay double dark blue-green, which makes it look great. And number three, we're able to use glyphosate on this grass to control any unwanted weeds, such as quackgrass that we've talked about before. That's going to be easier to get rid of in Vista. So anyway, with that being said, guys, that brings me to today's video where we're actually going to talk about a brand new project lawn that I just picked up. I've actually teased this quite a bit, that I just picked up with one of my dad's good friends. And what I'm going to be showing you guys today is step-by-step how to seed a lawn with the Scott's Vista Kentucky Bluegrass, or in general, any grass seed for that matter. But I'm going to show you guys how I would go about doing it, because honestly, guys, I think it is something that needs to be touched on, because a lot of people are scared that if they seed their lawn at the wrong time, it's going to fail, right? There's a ton of videos out there that tell you 99% of you will fail if you seed your lawn in the spring. And I'm here to tell you guys that that's not necessarily true if you happen to master a couple of things right out the gate after you have done the project. So with that being said, let's go ahead and dive in to the steps, the process, the project itself, and I'll show you guys how we're going to come out on top with the Vista. Dude, that's never fun. But it's good. Okay, so here's the deal. I am here to grab one of my favorite tools of 2022. Oh yeah, oh glory, look at that right there. The bad boy, the big dog. I actually have to get this guy lubed up. There's like 9 different bearing slots, so I have to try and find them. So I gotta get this guy lubed up and ready to go, because she's gonna be, you know, she's gonna be slinged around today. So yeah, let's get that done. They're not done over here.
I don't know. We're gonna have to do half of it. Where do they have to do it, over here now?
Well, they need to do the parkway.
Is that what the dirt's for? All right,
yeah.
Let's get moving.
I want to go ahead and talk about what is the best and worst time to seed a lawn. Now, in my case, we're going to be talking about cool season lawns, because that just happens to be within my wheelhouse and what I know very well and what I've been taking care of my entire life. So when we're talking about seeding, we're talking about cool season grass. By the way, I don't really think there's a whole lot of flexibility with seeding warm season grasses. You're probably better off sodding if you have a warm season lawn, which, by the way, if you're using the Vista St. Augustine grass, that's probably going to be the best way to go. Cool season grass seeding is an option, and it's more so an option in cool season land. The best time to seed your lawn is going to be in the fall, right? Because that's when temperatures are coming down, that's when the rain's coming back, and you're going to have a little bit of margin of error if you're not able to keep things watered. So fall is the best time. Spring is an okay time, especially if you start early when the temperatures just hit 55 in your soil and you're able to kind of ride out the spring rains for a little bit of time. But the only issue you have to worry about is the summertime, because the grass is fairly new. It hasn't had that winter to kind of mature and harden off before the summer. It's going to be a little more vulnerable to dying off if you're not able to keep it irrigated. So you don't have as much margin of error if you do it in the springtime. Now, I understand a lot of us do have new homes and we can't compromise that. We have to do things in the springtime just to get some grass on the ground. Going to have to do that in the spring, and that's the case with a lot of people. You know, they buy a new home and you can't seed it in the fall because it's not ready yet, and you end up having to do it in the spring because, well, based on timelines and projects happening around the property, you want to have turf on there, right? What I encourage a lot of people to do if you're going to seed your lawn in the spring is make sure irrigation is not going to be a problem. What I would actually recommend is having conversations with whoever's in charge of the property, whether it's you or not, to put in an irrigation system. It's just going to make things much easier and much more frictionless to keep the seed watered in times of stress. So that would be my advice to you. If it's in your wheelhouse, if you're able to do it, go ahead and install an irrigation system. You will thank me later for that. All that really matters with seed is not when you do it. Sure, one time is better than the other, but having a solid means of irrigation is what's really, really going to help you succeed. So that would be my advice to you, would be to have an irrigation system installed beforehand. If you can, if it's a new property or an existing property and you're able to do it, get an irrigation system installed. If you can afford it, then you have that solid means of irrigation, that peace of mind that your seed will be irrigated. All right, so next let's go ahead and talk about materials that you're going to need for this seeding project. Now, the first thing you're going to need before we get to any of the seed or fertilizers we're going to use is a means to create a final grade. You see, one of the things we're all going to run into, whether we're seeding an 8,000 square foot plot or an entire lawn, is the ground being uneven, unsmoothed out, and maybe even a little compacted depending on how dry the soil is with the time of year and the amount of rain you've been getting and all that type of stuff on when you start to approach it, right? So it's very important that you do have a final grade done, getting that ground roughed up, getting it smoothed out and ready to go so that you have a proper seed bed, so that when the lawn does come in long term, you actually have something that's nice and smooth, not as bumpy, right? And on top of that, it's just going to be better for the seed to grow in, because if you have all these divots and all of that, it's going to be very impractical for that stuff to grow. So having a nice smooth seed bed is going to make things ready to go. It's going to be good for drainage. It's going to be good for all sorts of things. So that would be number one, a means of getting done a final grade. Now, in my opinion, I wouldn't stress that as a homeowner or someone taking this on myself. I would actually hire that out or subcontract it to make sure that it gets done so that I could focus on the fun part, which is going to be putting down the seed and the fertilizer. So that's exactly what we did. We actually did hire a company, Star Landscaping. They came in and did the final grade for us on this property. We're in the midst of laying down the straw mats back here. Cass is doing a great job, but who's really doing a great job is this guy for making sure that the final grade got done. Tim, the owner of Star Landscaping. Tim, I couldn't thank you enough. You made short work for me and my crew to get things done, so I appreciate it. You did all the dirty work, man. What areas do you service here?
St. John, Cedar Lake, Cherville, Dyer.
Star Landscaping. You guys need some landscaping done? Call us.
That would be my first step, is finding a means of getting done a final grade, and on top of that, an irrigation company to come in and install. Once you've gotten that out of the way, now it's time to actually start talking about what we're going to need to make the seeding happen. So first off, you're obviously going to need your grass seed. In this case, we got our Vista seed, which I've already talked about the benefits of that grass type, or your grass seed of choice from a landscape supplier. If you're doing a project like this, I recommend sourcing it from a landscape supply center or a boutique seed supplier, because then you'll get something that's clean and has nothing but the pure turf that we want in the lawn. Because if you go cheap with your seed, you're going to end up with seed that has all sorts of unwanted garbage and weed seeds in there that we do not want to incorporate into our new grow, other than the pure, beautiful turf. So in our case, that's going to be the Scott's Vista Kentucky Bluegrass seed. If you're looking to find Scott's Vista Kentucky Bluegrass seed, let me just note it is not available within a boutique seed supplier setting. This is actually going to answer the age-long question a lot of people have been asking me over the last couple of months, and I'm glad to have an answer for you. Where can I find Scott's Vista seed? You can actually find it through the Vista Sod Grower Network, which I will leave linked down in the description below. And then next, you're going to need a means of fertilizer. In our case, we're going to be using the Greene County Next Fertility products, because why not? They're awesome products. If you guys would like, I'll leave those down below. And if you're not up for the next products, totally fine. We have some granular alternatives down there for you as well. Another thing I'd like to mention is the choice of fertilizer when you're going to do this seeding project. Now, there's a couple of different routes you can go, one of which I mentioned here in the video. You can go with liquid fertilizer combined with liquid methotryon. One of the mistakes I made personally is I didn't include the methotryon in this, and I regret doing that for reasons that you'll find in videos coming up. But you want to combine methotryon, which is available in liquid form from my good friends over at Greene County Fertilizer. Or Scott's, if you're looking to go the granular route, they actually have their own granular product called Scott's Triple Action, built for seeding. This product actually does contain methotryon tenacity in it, which in turn will control and keep the weeds at bay, while at the same time not interfering with the growth and mature process of our grass seed itself that we are putting down. So if you guys are looking for options of fertilizer and methotryon to use, those are ways to go. I will leave links down in the description below for more information. Make sure you have a means to start a fertilizer. You want something that contains the three main elements, as we've talked about before. Three numbers on the bag or jug: nitrogen, phosphorus, or potassium. NPK. NPK, you'll be okay, as I always like to say, when it comes to your new lawn seeding. You want something that contains the big three we always talk about. Okay, now this next material is going to depend on your situation. Now, if you're doing an 8,000 square foot plot that's pretty much flat, you're not really going to need this. We're doing an entirely new property, and we want to make sure that our rates of succession are very, very high, and that is going to be straw mats. Now, what the straw mats are for are going to be erosion control, because in this case, we're dealing with a very big property that does slope quite a bit, and we do get a lot of rain here in the spring, and because of that, erosion is an issue that we have to think about and be proactive with. So using straw mats is going to be ideal when seeding an entire lawn like this. Now, in our case, the Scott's Pro Vista folks, they recommend using the most thin set straw mats you can get, just to make sure that things don't get choked out, as the seeds are very small. With Pro Vista Kentucky Bluegrass seed in particular, it's best to use the thinnest straw mat you can get. In our case, that would be the S1000 single net from Site 1. So if you're getting it from Site 1, depending on where you are, you want to look for something that's going to be the most, you want the thinnest one is what you're going to want. Short and sweet. Alright, so the steps for this are actually going to be pretty easy and straightforward for us guys, because as I mentioned, we pretty much took all the legwork out of this by hiring out all of the big stuff. The irrigation install, the final grade, that was already done for us. So I'm not going to elaborate much on that in this video because we had that done for us. I'm going to leave that to the professionals. Now you can just jump in and put your seed on. Now, there are a couple of different ways you can seed. You could broadcast seed, you could use a hydro seed machine. In our case, because I'm experienced with broadcast applications of seed, we're going to focus primarily on that. I just don't have a whole lot of experience with hydro seed, so I can't speak on that. So we're just going to focus on seeding with a broadcast application. Now, with the Pro Vista Kentucky Bluegrass seed, they recommend applying that at a rate of 2 pounds per thousand at the very least. Now, in my opinion, I think we need to go a little bit more because we need to increase our chances of success with this being a bare lot. So I brought that up to maybe 3 or 4 pounds per thousand with this 40-pound bag of seed that I had to cover 15,000 square feet, which is what this lawn is. Now, as far as means of application go, with broadcast spreader, you can use whatever broadcast spreader you have at your disposal. In my case, I'm going to be using my Permagreen Triumph. And the next thing you're going to do is you're going to either spread or spray your fertilizer. As I talked about, depending on what you're doing, what you're good at, you can go either granular or liquid. I chose to go the liquid route with the Greene County Next products, more specifically the 1621-2 Green Pop at 15 ounces per thousand and the RGS product at 3 ounces per thousand. As we've talked about before in the video we did last year, actually, where we did the sod version of this, I recommend applying this because it's going to do so much good for your soil. It's going to provide you the big three: the nitrogen, the phosphorus, the potassium, right? NPK, you'll be okay. And on top of that, the RGS is just going to help in jump starting the root growth to get those roots down deep right out of the gate. Now, if you guys want to use granular, as I mentioned, we have those options down below. Now, in my case, this is perfect because I have a unique situation in that I have my Permagreen Triumph here that I've had for quite a while, and that I can spread the grass seed while simultaneously spraying down the fertilizer at those rates. So I can pretty much do a one and done with both of those, spreading and spraying at the exact same time with the Permagreen Triumph. So that's exactly what I did. Now, I understand a lot of you guys may not have access to big machinery like this, and that's totally okay because I didn't either for the longest time. I only have recently. So what I would do before is I would just spread out my grass seed with my spreader or disposal, and then right after I would come in with my backpack sprayer, ideally a battery powered one for the constant flow rate, and I would just go ahead and spray out my fertilizer afterwards, or I would just use my spreader to do both if I was doing granular starter fertilizer. That is what I would recommend for getting down the seed.
All right, that right there is Vista Kentucky Blue.
With that being said, the next step is going to be to put down the straw mats, which is pretty easy. You just have one guy rolling them out, another guy staking, cutting out irrigation heads, all that type of stuff. Just a little teamwork, a little slugging, a little unrolling. And once you do that, you're pretty much done, and it's time to start watering. Now, what I recommend for watering with new seed and new sod, the idea at the end of the day is going to be to keep the seed or sod, whatever, wet for the first 60 days of establishment. So what I recommend for that is to water at least 3 times a day, 20 minutes each zone each time. This is going to help in keeping all of the areas nice and wet throughout the entirety of that 60-day duration that we're going to need to get things established. If you guys would like to follow along with this project as we continue to unfold it and progress it, please consider subscribing to the channel, leave a like, leave a comment down below, let me know what you thought about it. If you have any additional questions, please leave those down below and I will get back to those as soon as I can. With that, I'm Jake the Lawn Kid. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Later.